Started. So the talk today is focused on taxonomies. We had a business problem that we needed to solve, and this is just kind of one way that you can solve a similar problem. I'm Christine Smith, and my co-presenter is John Cunningham. I noticed everybody was doing a who we are kind of slide. I work for IBM. I've been there 26 years. Started out as a software developer. I was on corporate webmaster team. I do technical SEO. My first exposure to Drupal was less than a year ago, and actually went to Drupalcamp in New Orleans. But I'm not a developer in Drupal yet. So, John here.
I'm a developer with Acquia. I've been working with Drupal for 2 years. I've been a developer for Acquia for 2 years, so still relatively new to the Drupal world myself. But, that's about it.
Yeah. So I dove into D8. So if you have any questions about Drupal 7, 6, whatever, that's John's territory, not mine. Come on in. So the simplest taxonomy, I think if you've done any Drupal at all, you know that it can hold a vocabulary. And I hear those terms interchangeably, taxonomy and vocabulary, as far as Drupal is concerned. And obviously you can have a list of words that can be used for a drop-down list, and populating those selection lists for people to choose from, kind of a controlled vocabulary. But can it do more? And that's what we're really talking about here. We had a business problem. We needed consistency on various areas of a large site. We wanted consistent URL selections, some access control based on segments of the site. We wanted certain parts of the site to have consistent navigation menus, some custom metadata. We wanted to enable services on certain pages by a segment. An example might be university departments. If you had an athletics department, an engineering department, education, fine arts, they're all going to want their own little flavor within their part of that site, right? And you don't want somebody from athletics going in and updating a fine arts page. Might be another scenario. So that was our business problem that we wanted to solve for a large site, to make it consistent. Drupal is really good for small sites, and but how do you scale that to something bigger? Actually, the way Drupal works, from my understanding, it's up to the content creator to do all that special stuff, to select all the buttons and things that the developer puts on the page in order to get their metrics tagging right, if they have different metrics for different parts of their site, for any custom metadata, the site menu, URL structure. And if any of that changes, if you changed your menu system you wanted to swap it to something completely different, you got to go to every page and make that change. At least that's my view from the business perspective. There are probably ways to fix that. But really, the content creators want to focus on the visible content. They don't want to have to deal with all this pesky markup on the page. And, they might choose or type in the wrong URL path or something like that. So we came up with this idea of we called it a web segment. We made it a taxonomy. And the web segment actually connects to other entities, like metadata selection we had in another taxonomy. So we picked the right metadata to go with that piece of the web segment and had it as an entity reference in the taxonomy, the web segment taxonomy. We did it also with the owner profile. Like, we needed to know who's responsible for this area of the site. If there were legal issues or security issues, we need to know right away who to contact. Obviously, you can do that by going into the Drupal database, but we had other people who needed just to be able to tell from the HTML rendering of the page. I mentioned access control, menu navigation, URL paths. Those were all entity references to other taxonomies. And so these are a sample list of fields. This is all custom, for our site. But it shows you actually the diagram that I mentioned before, how things are connected. The URL component was actually text, and we use path auto and tokens to build the URL along with the page name. But everything else really is entity references to bring that consistency. So I'm going to kind of fly through these slides. Might feel like a lot, but I need to give John time to actually show you the modules. So we use this web segment for a lot of stuff I mentioned before, access control. So a user can log into our Drupal site and request access to a particular area of our website based on that web segment. So they get this drop-down list of all the web segments that are in our taxonomy. They select the one that they're supposed to belong to. And that's using user profile module. Correct me if I say anything wrong, John. But then that person, when he requests access to that area of the website, we're using Workbench moderation to actually route that to the person who is the approver for that area of the website. So it kind of, we don't even have to go in and select the users that we want to have edit access in a particular area and roles and all that. They're like self-selecting based on the URL or the area of the website that they're responsible for. So when they author content, the first thing they do is select the web segment that they're authoring this node for. And they only are going to see the list of web segments that they have access for. That selection automatically will take care of their URL path calculation. They get to change, the page title part, but the URL is predefined for them. And it automatically will select the menu, the secondary menu that shows up on their site if it's different than the massive masthead or whatever. And then also it brings along some custom metadata that we had in our taxonomy. So once they create their content and they want to send it off to an editor or a publisher, then Workbench moderation enables those customized publishing states based on roles and routing, and there's this huge matrix that John will show you. So the users can submit their content that they've created to the next state, whether it's the author sending it to an editor sending it to a publisher, and then the publisher can push it live. And this is all on the Workbench dashboard kind of thing. It shows up in your work queue that this is something you need to act upon. So, that's a screenshot of moderation states in Workbench. And you can filter them in whatever way makes sense. You have My Segment content and other tabs up here. So then we talked about access control, creating content, pushing it through the workflow. Well, when it renders on the website, I mentioned several times the fact that we create the URL alias already based on the web segment selection. The menu is consistent for that whole web segment section of the site, and we get consistent custom metadata, tagging whatever you need for that part. So it provides consistency, easier centralized updates. If I need to change the meta tagging for a whole section of the site, I go into the web segment, change that metadata, and then all of the pages inherit that. And it makes for faster content creation for the authors or editors because they can just focus on the visible part of the site. It really sped up that content creation process for us. This is an aside, not really Drupal, but there is the way we put our custom metadata and services on our pages is through a digital data object. It's a W3C spec that was published 3 years ago. It's basically a JSON object on the page, tagging software like Telium and others use it. I put a reference at the bottom if you want to dig up more data on it, but with HTML5 you couldn't just go out and create your own meta tags because it would throw an error when you did a validation on HTML5. So we chose to adopt this digital data object to basically inform any services that are running on our page, whether they're ours or a third party. We configure what they're supposed to do on this page in this digital data object. So a lot of what's in our web segment, especially the custom tagging, the services data, goes into the digital data object. So my final slide before John gets you on hands-on is that taxonomies can bring your site administration, your site admin to really an enterprise level. It can help you with access control and workflow on different sections or segments of your site. It can bring consistency for custom metadata, URLs, menus, anything you choose to do. These are all options. And fortunately, we had a partner like Acquia that could figure out how to take a taxonomy and turn it into magic like this. So I'm going to stop the recording for a moment, let John set up his computer for the demo. Any questions for me? Maybe I'll ask that first.
Was this a project for GSA, or was this as for global services, or was it IBM itself?
It's within IBM.
Okay.
Yes?
So we are at an enterprise level, right? And I have that issue. I'm actually in digital marketing, so I'm not a developer. But one of my requirements is that we have numerous contributors, and we have different segments or industries within our corporate site, right? And one of the biggest hassles that I'm having is controlling that aspect, right? When it comes to metadata, SEO, and all that. So how are you guys doing that right now by controlling the segment using taxonomy?
How are we managing access control? Is that what I heard? Yeah, that's what John's going to show you.
Okay.
He's going to actually show you these contrib modules is what we're using to implement this stuff. Workbench access, workbench moderation, and profile. Okay, so I need to get out so that John can do his thing.
How's everyone doing? Like I said, my name is John Cunnin. I'm a developer for Acquia. I guess I'm still relatively new to the Drupal world myself, but been getting along okay. So I know this session was tagged as Site Builder. Obviously, we have some, we're using contrib modules through all this, but also have some custom work in there as well. And it's just not giving me enough time to really dive deep into everything, but, if there's something that you're interested in, feel free to confine me throughout the day, and, we could talk about it and get a little deeper into it. So I'm just going to kind of, try and go through, the editor's experience of what they might see on the site, and I'll try to, talk a little bit about the contrib modules that we're using as well. Like I said, just, feel free to find me at any time, so I have no problem sitting down talking about this in depth. So what we're looking at right now is some reason. Oh, I'm on the wrong screen, sorry. So start by looking at the actual taxonomy vocabulary itself here. And so basically, I know there was a question about access control in the back there. What we're looking at here is the web segment vocabulary. This actually maps out to the actual access control as well. So each one of these terms represents a different section on the site. You have some top-level terms. You have some terms nested within it, and some third-level terms as well. And so we are using the workbench access module as the kind of basis of our access control. And so the way that basically works is take a look at workbench access. You just tell it what vocabulary you actually want to use, and it's going to map it out for you as your access control sections. And so what's nice about access control is that it automatically inherits hierarchical permission. So if you add an editor to, say, /analytics here, they're automatically going to get access to these second and third level terms as well. If you add an editor to the second level term, then they're going to have access to the third level terms as well, and so on. And so the way that works for an editor when they come into the site for the first time, or not for the first time, for any time, they come into their user profile, and they can make, we expanded the user profile here, they can make requests to different sections within the site here. And that gets, that generates, like Christine said, we're using the profile module to kind of generate these add-ons to the user account, basically. Each request creates a new profile someone with the proper permissions could go in and approve them approve those permissions for the editor. So, sorry, I'm not much of a public speaker. I get nervous. But so once they actually have access to a web segment, they go into create content. You can see our web segment options field here. So for this particular user, let me show off the workbench here. So what we're looking at here is different requests that have been made on the site so far. So we have an editor, approver, an access administrator, another editor, content editor. You can see the segments that they requested here, the roles that they're requesting to be and everything. And so notice here we have content editor 1 who's made a request to analytics. You know, if you look here, when they go to the drop down, they have access to every term. They have analytics and every term that's nested below it. So that kind of goes back to what I was saying here when we look at the taxonomy structure itself, how the permissions are hierarchical. So this user has been granted permission to analytics. They can be an editor for, you know, every one of these segments that's nested below it.
Excuse me, John, if
Yeah.
you made a change to the taxonomy and pulled out one of those sub-permission levels for analytics, would that immediately reflect in live users' access?
Like if you deleted the term itself or just made a change to it, they would just cease to exist in access control, and they would no longer, that when they went to create content, you know, that would no longer show up as an option for them, you know, in their selection field there.
So it's an immediate way to change permissions, and it's not a set of once and then it happens from the okay, it makes sense now.
Their existing stuff would remain.
The actual content that they created,
Previously.
it would remain, but what would happen is at that point, because that section didn't exist anymore, so they would lose access to it themselves because access control says they should only have access to what they belong to. So at that point, someone like a site admin who can bypass access control would have to take care of it.
And because we have so many dependencies on this, not just access control, it would probably break our pages because the URLs, I guess the URL alias would still exist.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would cause us extra problems. So
Question, every time that you add something that they say to the term, you have to remember from a site admin standpoint to add those terms to the main term.
To the taxonomy vocabulary?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you would definitely, someone has to go in there and build out the actual structure. You know, a site builder or an admin or something, they would have to add those terms to it. And once it's added to the vocabulary, then at that point, you know, it'll make itself available to the user, you know, to make a request to that.
Hey, John.
And just to finish on that one, we wanted to have our SEOs kind of control what URLs we have, because we want our URLs to have keyword traction in Google.
Can we see that? Because I didn't see that on a term itself. Where you put that.
Oh, so you open up one of the taxonomy.
Well, you want to see the actual structure of the taxonomy? Yeah. I was going to find my page, so.
So down at the very bottom is the URL path. Oh, there's a sub-menu selection, but it used to be at the bottom.
Oh, there it is,
There
URL
is.
component.
We keep adding stuff to it because it's just so.
Yeah, so it's a little disorganized right now. We need to kind of rearrange the fields there. But, you know, if you go on, might as well talk about the actual taxonomy structure. So if you look at it, you know, I'll use any reference fields that are referencing other, you know, taxonomy vocabularies. But you kind of look at the field, the names, and kind of the idea what they're for. You have an owner, you know, that would probably be used for access control, someone, you know, who oversees that section. It could be like a chief publisher or something like that. You know, we have all these other fields for different metrics, types of stuff. The URL component fields, Christine says, it's what helps generate the URL when a new node is created, more metric stuff like that.
So the actual name that you saw is anything you want. And
Right.
that it's not, we're not having.
Right, that'd be like the section name that, you know, something easy for the user to know what they belong to. Which is, you know, it's good because, you know, as this taxonomy grows, you know, if it hundreds of terms, you know, when a user goes to create content, they're only going to be presented with what they actually belong to. So it kind of cuts down that confusion as well. So
Before you go further from that, you talk about what could happen if you erase it. But what would happen if you just change it from one structure to another? Because the ID would be still there. The whole settings you have done essentially are going to stay there, but now the user should not have access to that anymore. So
I can't say for sure, I'm just guessing on this, but I'm thinking what would happen since you're only changing the name of it, you know, the term ID is not changing or anything like that. So I think access control would still see it as the user belonging to that particular term ID and just change the name to go along with it. Now, if it gets maybe moved, like re-nested somewhere into like a different term, I would imagine the permissions would probably follow along with it. I think you'd be okay if you're just, you know, changing names like that. So
The best practice is probably get your structure right the first time.
yeah.
I'm constantly changing names,
Yeah.
actually, and it works. It just is magic. It blows me away, but it's so cool.
Yeah, so let's just create a simple piece of content here. Page, so you have your analytics selection. Go on.
Can you do that structure in 7.5, or is mainly for 8?
What do you mean? The taxonomy structure? No, you could like a nested taxonomy structure. No, you could do that in 7.
And workbench access and moderation, I think they exist in December.
They do. I have not played with them, so I can't really.
They do.
Oh, yeah,
they work well.
are.
Do they? Okay, yeah. So
Isn't term reference in 8 though also now an entity reference? Does it change how it works? So that's just my question. So if you're in 7, it's not actually an entity reference.
yeah, I couldn't really say because I didn't really work with workbench access all in 7, so I don't really know.
I can tell you that you probably can do exactly the same thing because I've seen this part before, but I just couldn't use it at all. I mean, it didn't work out for me, and I didn't have the time to try to figure it out. That's why I'm so interested in what you are doing, because now it kind of makes sense for me what I saw like, no, I don't know, 6 or 7 months ago. So essentially, everything you are doing right here looks pretty the same thing as Drupal 7. The only thing I would say that changed is the name, changing from entity reference to be just a term reference. How is it called in Drupal 7? But essentially the same thing. I mean, it's still an entity that's referenced through the field. So I don't think it would be a problem to use in Drupal 7 at all.
No, I don't think so either. Probably a little bit easier, actually. I know workbench access in Drupal 8. I mean, it works good. It hasn't been touched for a while to be updated. I'll kind of go through this real quick, but if I can. Yeah, so like workbench access in Drupal 8, I'm not sure how it works in 7, but at least in 8, this is kind of your default interface for adding users to different sections. You basically have 2 columns here. So you have one column for adding individual users to a section, and you have a second column for adding an entire role to a section. So if you want all editors on the site to be advanced analytics, you can add it in through here. But if you're looking for individual users, you come in here, click on this. And so this is, I know it looks kind of like roles. These are just, generic users I created on the site last night. This is how you would add a user to a section. You'd go through a list and click a checkbox. And so this is fine if you have a few users on the site. But, if this starts growing to hundreds of users and then, maybe potentially hundreds of different sections as well, it can be kind of overwhelming for someone with the proper permissions to come in here and find each individual user for each section, find their names, checkbox it, and submit it. So it doesn't really scale well as far as adding users. So, Christine kind of mentioned when she was doing her portion that we're using the profile module to kind of facilitate this process. And what we've done is we've expanded the user account field. We just basically added, some select lists there. And like I was saying, with the profile module, it's basically, it extends the user account, but it's separate from the user account as well at the same time. So what's happening is these, actually let me just pull it up. If I already have it open, I'm not sure. I don't. So each time you make a request, it's making a new profile, PHP errors. So you can see here, each one of these is a request that was made. And so building these out is just kind of like building out like a content type. So I created a new profile type called Editorial Access Sections. You take a look at it, then it's just, basically fields that map to this user account field here, web segments and request roles. And that's basically all we're doing is when someone submits this, it's just, grabbing these values, automatically creating a new profile. And what's nice about profile is that you can add moderation to them. And that's basically what we've done here is we added some custom states, requesting access, revoke access, and approving access. That way we can give control to users with the proper roles to come in here and check these requests out, make sure they actually belong, and to make sure the editor actually belongs to that section. And they go through and approve those requests. There's obviously a little bit of custom work there to talk back and forth. But another kind of shortcoming of Workbench Access, it only has one permission for granting or for granting users to different sections. So basically, anyone with that permission can grant users to any section they want on the site. And so we've also kind of restricted that as well by saying that an access administrator, someone who could approve editors and publishers, we're checking to make sure they actually have permissions to add to their own web sections as well. That's basically Workbench Access and Profile and how they're working together. And like I said, if you want to kind of dive deeper into that, feel free to find me. So let me get back to the actual content page here. So we're just creating a new node here. I'm just going to leave it mostly blank, just to kind of throw some values in here. Go on, save and request review. So we just tagged over that one single, web segment there. If you inspect it, and so you can see here is the digital data object that Christine was talking about here. This is all being pulled from that one taxonomy term there. And so it's just pulling the values that have been set on that particular term and setting up here. This is just done through a custom module. It's just a page attachments hook. It's grabbing the data, sending it to an array, and doing like a JSON encode function on there and putting it in here. Looks pretty nice though. And then you can see the URL up here after it's been created. It's taking the it's combining the value from the URL component field in that taxonomy term. It's combined with the title. Like I said, we're doing that with path auto and tokens and a little bit of custom work as well.
Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, but I'm not quite sure I understand why you're putting that JSON data in the page.
That's for, Christine could probably answer that better than I can, but it's for, custom metrics and metadata stuff. And
Yeah, so if you, can you go back to the HTML page? So this is a W3C spec, right? It's not a standard that you have to follow, but you can enable it for whatever you want. You can extend it for whatever you want. We use core metrics, or I guess IBM Digital Analytics for our analytics. And there's a specific primary category is used for the metrics things and site ID. If you scroll down some, you can see that we're actually enabling Hotjar, Live Person, Medallia, Convertro, Optimizely. There's things that we can, on our site, configure, and then our JavaScript, our main JavaScript, can go out and do the right thing, pass the right parameters or whatever to those services. So it's an industry standard that we've adopted and participated in the spec for, but so did Google and Adobe and Telium a lot of people are using it, they just call it something different. So, you know, what is it, CEDDL, that reference link I gave you, you can go search for blog posts and stuff on that. It's not really well known, but we're standardizing on it as well as some of our tooling in IBM.
So it's primarily for metrics.
It can be, yeah,
How is it is it related in any way to permissions?
no.
Okay.
It is not. It's a way of dealing with our custom metadata that we want on the page. We put it as a JavaScript object
Okay.
and adopted that standard as a way to do it.
Okay, so it's the answer to one of the challenges you had at the beginning.
It was,
Gotcha.
yes.
Okay. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Is this something that you're using IBM worldwide or just in North America?
Worldwide.
Worldwide. Okay. So in terms of multilingual, are you translating it? Are you running it? What are you doing with?
That's a future sprint. We're getting there.
Yeah, haven't quite got the translation
John's
yet.
problem.
Yeah. Yeah, so we kind of, we saw that one term, like Christine said, we want to kind of take away the confusion from the editor and just, make it as simple as possible. And just from that one term, tagging the piece of content, we could create the URL, create the digital data object. We have the access control that's making sure that editors can only create content to, sections they've been approved for. Publishers can only publish content for sections they're approved for. I think that's it as far as like a general overview. I know I probably went really fast over access control and stuff, but
The workbench.
oh yeah, we can take a look at the workbench stuff. So I'm logged in as an editor now.
I'm intrigued by the politics there. How did Drupal manage to get itself into IBM?
I'm on the Weather Channel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, weather.com was
Early
is
part.
now belongs to IBM.
And Apple and IBM are like this.
Yeah.
I'm a former IBM.
Yay.
It's a,
Well, me too.
We
That's
could
why I'm
talk.
kind of asking because we're sitting underneath that being MySQL, which is Oracle. Unless you have changed it and actually adopted DB2 underneath.
but the Weather Channel was, I think, a big driver in getting Drupal. And I started seeing up publications with Drupal under the developer IBM. It's like, so how to do this stuff? Look under, and it's free for people. I guess it is open. I think the developer IBM is you can just make an account as a non-employee, and you can see some tutorials. There's not a great deal of them, but some tutorials on it. IBM publishes everything. I think America was the #1 publisher in the world, and at one point IBM was #2 publisher in the world. So at one point in the world, so there's a lot of stuff IBM shares.
Yeah, so this is our workbench view. It's just a bunch of, just a series of different views to display different data to the users, and it changes, depending on what role you're viewing it as. Seems to have broken something though. Maybe when I was playing around with it last night or something, because the content is not showing up the way it should. The way this normally works though is content that's tagged with your section. These views, filter based off of what sections you're approved for, and they only show the content that is actually relevant to yourself, instead of bombarding a content approver with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pieces of content. They're just going to see what actually belongs to their section. For this particular user, the analytics, different content types. You should be able to view it by the moderation state that it's in. I have no idea why the content is created.
Masquerading as a wrong user?
No, I'm a content approver, so I should be seeing the node that I just created on this tab, or wherever it was, that I set to request review.
Did you save it?
Yeah, I saved it. So I'm not exactly sure. I'll have to dig into the views and see what's going on with it.
Always happens in a live demo, right?
Yeah.
But if you're not using incognito mode in the second window, isn't your user cookie probably the same in both windows?
Yeah.
Here, we'll try this way. All right, let's just go in as user 1 here. So yeah, so for user 1, it's not. Oh, there it is. Okay. It's weird. Oh, this is not changing because I'm in Firefox in this view and Chrome in this view. Yeah, so I masquerade as that user. It should be showing up. Content approver.
While he's doing that, is this being hosted under Bluemix or where's your?
Oh, don't ask. Okay.
No, here, but no, when it's in production, how are you doing that?
I can't say.
Okay. Okay, no, I understand. I've signed all the forms at one point in my life, I know. Millions of forms.
Yeah, so I'm not sure why the content's not showing up properly right now. I'll have to figure out what I broke. So I break things a lot.
I have another question. What's the glue tying the permissions that you set up in Workbench and profiles to the actual Drupal users?
What do you mean?
Well, how?
It's part of Workbench Access,
What's
right?
the last mile?
So, okay, so I'll try to explain. So we have, Workbench Access at the core, right? We have the profile module that the users use to make the request, and then we're using a custom module that we're just calling Access Control Administration. That is basically handling the talking back and forth between profile and Workbench Access, and the moderation on the profiles. And basically what we're doing is user makes a request, you set the moderation on that request to request an access. Someone with the proper role, an access administrator, will come in. If they belong to that same web segment, they'll see the request. If they approve the user, they change the moderation state on the request to approved. And then once that's done, then we just have code that's basically taking the the values that were set in the request, and it's just telling Workbench Access, okay, this user should now have access to this section, and then we're adding the role to the user account as well, whatever role they requested. So.
Yeah, the role to the user. Okay.
So, yeah, well, this tab seems to work. So I'm, this is just a way of viewing, your own requests on the site. So you can see as an access or a content approver, I made a request to analytics, with the role of content approver. You can see the access status is approved. Not sure why it says time request was made 2 hours ago, because I didn't do it 2 hours ago. So maybe something else to look into. It's always fun. And then we have these content creation tabs. These show up for users with the role of editor or content approver, any user that can create content. It just helps them find what content they create. We separate out the different categories for them.
So is that some of the custom code that you're doing tying into W3s to know that they're an IBM employee as well? That's under, or is this a standalone?
There's something else that is actually handling that. So when an IBM employee, comes in and, when they log in for the first time, they go through IBM's own system that creates, and then it will come through and create an account for them through Drupal.
Okay, so I was just seeing if there was a nightmare going on with people moving around within IBM later on.
You really are an IBM veteran.
I look out for the people I used to work for, so I'm trying to.
I mean, I think, we've definitely hit our own issues, but, I don't think it's been too bad. I think it's been fairly smooth at least.
So how long has it been in production, or has this been in production just yet?
No, we're not even close to anything like that.
Okay, back to the permissions. You showed us that you are using it to filter the content types each user can use, basically which content they can create or not, right? Is that something that you can expand to determine vocabularies, paragraphs, any other entity you have in the site?
Yeah, I think you can,
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely could. I don't really have an in-depth answer for you there. I think so, though.
Okay.
Any other questions?
so your content types, you can choose whether to have the web segment be the taxonomy that controls that access, or you can do traditional access roles and access.
Yeah, the one thing you'd want to look out for that if you're picking and choosing is that if you have users that, if you have a user that belongs to, you know, can create content for like all the different content types, right? And, you know, let's say you have one content type that doesn't fall under access control, but that user still has, you know, belongs to some section inside of access control, then they can create content for that content type that doesn't fall under access control. But once they save it, they no longer have access to it because, once again, Workbench Access is saying this user can only edit content that falls under this category, and so it'll lock them out of it.
So in that case, the user will be able to create the content, but eventually won't be able to.
Once they save it, they won't be able to see it anymore. So,
Okay.
but they could see it, but they can't. They can no longer edit it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, they cannot.
Yeah. So.
Is that it for questions? A couple of minutes early.
Yeah.